Have you ever met someone who is endlessly kind? They smile when they're exhausted. They give even when it drains them. They say yes when their soul is screaming no. They are not kind because the world is kind to them. They are kind because once the world wasn't. There is a type of kindness that does not come from virtue. It comes from fear, from survival, from a wound so deep it teaches the heart to protect itself through softness. You think you're witnessing compassion, but what you're seeing is a defense mechanism in disguise. This is not the kind of kindness that heals. It's the kind that hides, the kind that bends, folds, and contorts itself to stay safe, to avoid conflict, to keep love. Have you ever wondered why some people are kind to the point of disappearance? Why they vanish inside their own generosity? Today, we begin a journey into the kindness that was born from trauma. The child who learned that love must be earned does not grow up to demand love. They grow up to overgive, to over-adapt, to shrink themselves into the shape of others' needs. This is not compassion. This is hypervigilance wrapped in a smile. Carl Jung spoke of the persona, the mask we wear to navigate society. But what happens when the mask is no longer a choice, but a compulsion? Do you ever feel like someone finally sees the part of you you've always hidden? Here, you don't have to hide anymore. You're safe now. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel so we can keep walking this path together. Thank you. When kindness is no longer a virtue, but a shield. You see, some people offer kindness because it's how they feel safe. They learned early that anger brings punishment, that saying no brings abandonment, that boundaries bring rejection. So they become the peacemakers, the fixers, the caregivers. They never ask, only give. Never express, only suppress. This is not because they are inherently good. It's because they are deeply afraid. Afraid of being seen as difficult. Afraid of being too much. Afraid of being left. Their nervous system has been wired to survive through niceness. Kindness is their currency of safety. But the cost is high. They lose themselves. They abandon their truth. They forget the sound of their own voice. This is the kindness that kills identity, that erases the self in order to preserve connection. It's hard to see it from the outside because these people are praised, loved, admired. But inside they are screaming, and the world says, "You're so strong, so kind, so good." But they are just tired. This trauma response can look beautiful, but it is forged in pain. It is not a choice, it is a pattern. A deeply ingrained behavioral survival code. Jung reminds us that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Kindness in this form is not fate, it's a symptom. You might recognize yourself in these words. Maybe your kindness was your only way to stay safe in a chaotic home. Maybe your gentleness was how you kept love around you. But now it has become a cage, a beautiful golden cage built from pleasing everyone but yourself. Do you see it? Do you feel it? This is not to shame your kindness, but to ask, where does it come from? Is it rooted in connection, or is it rooted in fear? There is a kindness that blossoms from healing, but there is also a kindness that blooms from fear, from the shadows of abandonment. To free yourself, you must first see yourself. You must ask the terrifying question, who am I when I stop performing kindness? That question breaks the illusion. It shatters the persona, and it brings you back to the self. Jung believed the journey of life was to individuate, to peel off the masks and meet the raw, unpolished soul underneath. Kindness is beautiful, but only when it's real. What happens when you finally stop being nice to survive? We'll continue that reckoning in the next part. They say you're easy to love because you never raise your voice, because you never ask for more, because you're always the one adjusting. But have they ever wondered what it costs you to be this easy? There's a silence that grows inside people like you, a quiet grief for the self that was never allowed to speak, a mourning for the version of you that might have existed if you hadn't spent your life making sure everyone else was comfortable. You were told that being liked is the highest form of safety, so you became likable. You shaped yourself into smiles and softness. You edited out your anger, your wants, your boundaries. And now, you don't know where they went. This is what happens when survival trains you to disappear. When a child is rewarded for being good, but punished for being real, they learn quickly. Goodness equals safety. But goodness in this context means obedience. It means quiet. It means saying yes when your body says no. This is the origin of the invisible self. You learn to scan every room for danger. You study people's moods like weather patterns. You become a master of preemptive apologies. Not because you're thoughtful, but because you're terrified. Terrified that one wrong step will cost you love. Terrified that one boundary will drive people away. Terrified that being honest will make you unlovable. This is not kindness. This is hyper-survival. A shape-shifting mechanism that says, if I can just be enough, they won't leave. Carl Jung called this living in service to the persona. You serve the mask. You protect it at all costs. Because underneath it, you fear there's nothing worth loving. But that's not true. That's the trauma speaking. You see, when you abandon yourself enough times, it becomes a habit, a reflex, an identity. You become the helper, the listener, the one who's always fine. And people love you for it, but not the real you, the version of you that's easy for them. You become trapped in the illusion that love must be earned by disappearing. So you become smaller. You silence your needs. You lower your expectations. You endure. But inside, you're starving. This starvation isn't for food. It's for honesty, for wholeness, for a love that can hold your truth, not just your performance. Jung believed that the parts of ourselves we repress don't die. They go underground. They become the shadow. Your anger, your desire, your boundaries, your truth. All of it lives in the shadow. And until you face it, it will sabotage your life in subtle, quiet ways, not through explosions, but through emptiness, through overfunctioning, through depression that whispers, I don't even know who I am anymore. To be kind is beautiful, but to be kind while betraying yourself is a slow form of self-destruction. You don't need to stop being kind. You need to stop being kind at your own expense. Because the truth is, the people who truly love you, they don't need you to disappear. They need you to be whole. So what happens when you let the shadow speak? When you say no, when you take up space, when you finally allow your truth to be seen? You said no. Just once, just softly, and everything changed. The room got quiet. Someone frowned, someone walked away. It felt like an earthquake, but it was just one word, no. Why does the smallest assertion feel like betrayal? Why does claiming a boundary feel like causing harm? Because your nervous system isn't used to it. Because your soul has been trained to associate truth with rejection. This is the rupture. This is where the false self begins to crack. This is the moment the mask trembles. the moment the people-pleaser begins to rebel, not with fire, but with a whisper, a boundary, a refusal to betray oneself again. You see, when you've spent your whole life adjusting to the comfort of others, any act of self-assertion feels like violence. You say no and your body shakes. You speak up and your heart races. You take space and guilt drowns you. Because deep inside, the old programming activates. You're not allowed to need. You're not allowed to hurt others. You're not allowed to matter more than their comfort. But here's the truth. That programming was built to protect you, but it is now the very thing destroying you. Carl Jung said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." And this is that pain. The pain of waking up. The pain of realizing your kindness was survival, not choice. The pain of confronting the fact that love, as you knew it, was conditional. But in that pain is power. Because this is the moment of choice, the moment you no longer auto-betray. The moment you ask, what if I stopped shrinking? What if I let myself be inconvenient? What if I believed that my truth is not too much? You might lose people. You might disappoint them. You might feel lonely. But you will not be lost to yourself. This is the path of individuation, of confronting the shadow and inviting it home. The shadow is not evil. It is exiled truth. Your anger, your needs, your boundaries, your worth. It knocks softly every time you're about to abandon yourself. It whispers, "Please, not again." And when you finally listen, really listen, you begin to feel it. The reintegration of your soul. You stop filtering yourself. You stop apologizing for your presence. You stop performing kindness in exchange for love. And so the rupture deepens, not as a destruction, but as a birth. To break is not to fail. To rupture is not to ruin. It is the only way the false self dies, so the true self can be born. You will cry. You will question everything. You will be tempted to go back. But listen, that old self is not your home. It was your shelter. Now it's your cage. Carl Jung believed that we are not here to be good. We are here to be whole. And wholeness requires truth, even when it costs you everything you built while being half alive. So the next time your voice shakes, the next time your truth trembles on your lips, the next time your boundary feels like betrayal, let it come. That's not weakness. That's the soul returning. The silence after the rupture is deafening. No more scripts, no more rehearsed smiles. Just you and the raw echo of your own voice. There is grief, but also relief, because the mask is gone. Now what? You are not who you used to be, but you don't yet know who you are. This space in between is terrifying, but it is sacred. This is where rebuilding begins, not by fixing, but by remembering. You wake up, and for the first time, you don't know who you need to be. You're not performing. You're not adjusting. You're not scanning for approval. You just are. But this state is unfamiliar, because for years you survived by being someone else. So now, in the quiet, your nervous system panics. The silence feels dangerous. The peace feels like absence, because chaos was your normal. Overgiving was your identity. Now, you're rebuilding. But not like before, not by molding yourself into what they want, but by allowing what's true to surface. This isn't about becoming someone new. It's about excavating the parts of you that were buried under performance. Who were you before the world told you who to be? before you learned to smile through discomfort, before you believed love was conditional. Carl Jung taught us, your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. This rebuilding isn't about creating a new mask. It's about meeting yourself beneath the debris of survival. And it's hard, because you don't trust your own instincts yet. You still flinch at your own voice. You still hesitate before telling the truth. But each time you honor your body's signals, each time you listen to your no, each time you choose honesty over harmony, you lay a brick, not for a wall, but for a foundation. The foundation of a self rooted in authenticity, not kindness as survival, not goodness as strategy, but truth. And that truth will often feel empty, because it's not loud, it doesn't beg, it doesn't prove, it just is. You learn to sit with discomfort instead of people-pleasing. You learn to wait instead of fixing. You learn to allow others to be disappointed. And in doing so, you return, not to a version of you that pleases, but to the one that breathes. You begin to dream again, not dreams filtered through obligation, but dreams whispered by your soul. This rebuilding is sacred because it's where you stop striving and start becoming. No applause, no validation, just truth. And slowly something shifts. You begin to feel safe in your own presence. You begin to feel peace, not from others' comfort, but from your own alignment. And that is home. The self that emerges after the rupture is quiet, not because it's afraid, but because it no longer needs to scream to exist. This is the return to essence, where you are no longer busy being enough, because you already are. Carl Jung believed that healing isn't becoming perfect, it's becoming whole. And wholeness means reclaiming even the parts you were taught to exile. Your voice, your boundaries, your fire, your softness, all of it. You don't need to be more. You don't need to be less. You just need to be you. The one behind the mask. The one who never needed to earn love to be worthy of it. So now you know. Kindness is not a costume. It is a current. One that must begin with truth. And when your kindness flows from your truth, not your trauma, it heals everything it touches. In the next part, we will walk into that truth, where kindness is no longer performance but presence, where love is no longer fear but freedom, where you are no longer surviving, but finally, alive. The silence after the rupture is deafening. No more scripts. No more rehearsed smiles, just you and the raw echo of your own voice. There is grief, but also relief, because the mask is gone. Now what? You are not who you used to be, but you don't yet know who you are. This space in between is terrifying, but it is sacred. This is where rebuilding begins, not by fixing, but by remembering. There's no spotlight, no applause, just stillness. And you standing in your own skin. This is not the rebirth they write poems about. It's quieter, slower, stranger. Because after everything you've lost, you expected to feel free. But what you feel is power, unfiltered, undeniable, but also unfamiliar. You are no longer adjusting. You are no longer performing. You are simply here. And now, your kindness is different. It does not bend. It does not beg. It does not betray. It flows. You begin to see clearly now, not through the eyes of your wound, but through the eyes of yourself, You notice where you once shrank. You now stay. You notice where you once overextended. You now hold back, not from fear, but from integrity. This is what it means to embody your truth. You do not offer kindness to be liked. You offer it because it is aligned. Your energy no longer leaks through apologies. Your heart no longer fractures from saying yes when you mean no. Kindness now is an extension of your wholeness. It is not a performance. It is not a strategy. It is not a currency. It is a reflection of who you are, of who you've become. Carl Jung wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." But you have, not perfectly, but honestly. And now your life reorganizes itself around this new center. You begin to attract relationships that meet you, not your mask. You find that silence no longer feels like rejection. It feels like rest. You don't need to be everything to everyone anymore. You need only to be whole with yourself. This is the kindness that heals, because it does not ask you to disappear. It invites you to be seen. You stop managing other people's comfort. You stop trying to rescue everyone from their own feelings. You start trusting that you are not responsible for everyone's peace, only your own. And that changes everything, because now when you give, it nourishes you. Now when you love, it doesn't cost you your voice. Now when you say yes, it's because you mean it. This is freedom, not the loud, wild kind, but the grounded, quiet, certain kind. You carry yourself differently. Not to be impressive, but because you are no longer afraid. This is what it means to be kind after the trauma is healed. It's not soft, it's sovereign. You are no longer using kindness to avoid pain. You are using it to reflect truth. You do not please. You participate. You do not prove. You embody. And in that, you become the person you needed, back when you were lost in approval. Jung said, "Wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration." You have integrated the scared child, the silent martyr, the kind mask, the raging shadow, the silent self, all of it, all of you. And now your kindness is not a trauma response. It is your radiance, because you are no longer acting kind. You are kind, without shame, without fear, without a mask. This is the return, not to who you were told to be, but to who you've always been. And that is everything.